The explosion from the end of last issue has quieted the battlefield, but the ever-resilient Wolverine survives, and after a 5-day healing period, he is ready to make things right. But before he begins his trek back to the Savage Land, Tony Stark gives him one last warning. Wolverine does not heed his words. He travels back to the moment where he confronted and killed Hank Pym. He explains to his previous self that killing Pym does not fix everything, and instead proposes Stark's plan of creating Ultron with a virus or code in place that will stop him when the time comes. The two Wolverines and Sue Storm convince Pym of what needs to be done and leave him to his devices. Before traveling back to the present, Wolverine deals with the time paradox he has created, killing the Wolverine that saw the alternate future. The issue ends with an infantile version of Ultron coming to life. We'll have to wait and see if this plan actually works out.
So issue 9, and we finally see Ultron.
Did not expect him to appear like that.
Yeah, he's like a baby, you know?
Pym is given such a monumentally hard plan to carry through. Not only does he have to create Ultron, he has to create a time-release virus, and he has to somehow forget all of this that happened. And they sort of just leave him to his devices without really explaining how he's going to do all of that.
Yeah, Sue and Wolverine were probably the worst possible people who could repair the time stream.
If it is just solved by a time-release virus, I'm actually very disappointed because the last 2 issues, we had this kind of interesting new timeline developing, and then turns out that the only thing that mattered from that was just this small idea of a time-release virus, which I felt could have come from anyone else. You know, even the original Tony Stark could have come up with that.
Yeah, especially when he was walking through the forest at the beginning. See, that's what makes me generally dislike this series so far, is that everything that happened at the beginning is so far irrelevant. Hawkeye saving Spider-Man hasn't come back for 5 issues, and if it doesn't tie in to the very ending, I'm going to be incredibly annoyed.
I also just really disliked how last issue's Morgan Le Fay incident was resolved. They just all exploded and no one cares what happened.
See, I also don't understand when you bring that up, is Wolverine survives the explosion, and then he's like unconscious for 5 days. He gets up, fights some Morgan Le Fay powered Doombot, and then the next panel, he's back in Hank Pym's time. They don't explain how he got from a Morgana-controlled New York back to the Savage Land Doom time portal.
You just walk there, you know? He's just walking there slowly. Not much else happens.
And none of the sentries see him?
I also hate how 5 days pass, and we'd get to see none of those 5 days. I assume the heroes just didn't lose instantaneously when that explosion went off. So I'm sure there was some struggle that happened, and we get to see none of it. Apparently none of those other characters matter.
And for some reason, Tony Stark is lying there with them the entire time, too, and nobody comes looking for him. If you're Morgana, you obviously want to kill the head of the enemy.
Just lying there, half alive, just to give Wolverine this last message, which he completely ignores. As he's lying there, Stark calls time an organism, and when you go through time, you hurt it, and if you keep doing it, eventually you'll kill it. You'll break it beyond repair.
And after he says that, he even asks what happens when time is destroyed, and I'm actually thinking that is potentially what's going to be the end resolution of Age of Ultron, is what happens when you destroy time.
Unfortunately, we've already seen some of the previews for series that are going to spin off from Age of Ultron in this week's comics.
We also know that Angela is going to join the Marvel Universe, so I think this is almost similar to DC's Flashpoint event in that, like, the universes somehow converge because of some cosmic events, and then that way you can introduce characters from other stories into the universe.
Jumping back to this issue, though, the real star emerges inexplicably to be Wolverine.
And not just one Wolverine, 2 Wolverines. I'm surprised they just didn't start throwing more in, because apparently that's what sells in Marvel, Wolverine. And I also really didn't like the scene where they decide that only one of them can live and go back to their own time. And he kills his other self. And I just don't understand how he could kill his other self. People have been constantly trying to kill Wolverine, and they never succeed. I've seen Hulk rip him in half, throw him across, like, states, and then he still lives.
Does, like, Wolverine know, like, some secret weakness that he only knows? Like, if he touches, like, himself in this the exact right spot, he just, like, spontaneously combusts or something?
And Sue has actually been a little bit, like, freaked out when the Wolverine came back. which kind of surprised me because after all the shit she's seen in, like, recently, that shouldn't phase her, I don't think.
Wolverine took Sue along, but she has been so unimportant. It's disappointing. Wolverine was the one that killed Hank Pym. He's the one that got to talk to him. Wolverine was the one that got interrogated. And then Wolverine is the one that reinitiates this time travel again. Susan Storm is just, like, there.
Yeah, I mean, she was supposed to be the voice of reason, but she hasn't really done anything. Other than say, okay, kill Hank Pym. But as a grade for Age of Ultron number 9, what would you give it?
I'd give this issue a 2 out of 5. I'm so disappointed because I stuck with this meandering storyline expecting a really big payoff at the end, but this penultimate issue offers no excitement, no twists, and I'm just not looking forward to the end.
I'm going to give Age of Ultron number 9 a 3. I wasn't very interested in this issue, but I'm going to be an optimist and hope that the end of Age of Ultron incorporates some of the beginning, like with Spider-Man and Hawkeye, and will make it all worthwhile.
Thanks for watching B3 Comics' review of Age of Ultron, Book 9. Before we go, we have a question for you.
With the event coming to an end, do you think Age of Ultron is an event to be remembered? Why or why not?
Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up.